Freemasonry is the oldest fraternity in the world and among the oldest continued organizations in history. Now, the Masons trace their origins to the local guides of stonemasons that from the end of the 14th century regulated the qualifications of stonemasons and their interactions with authorities and clients.
At the East Gate. Grandmaster Hierophant, I'm glad to meet you, Bassalon. Give me the secrets of a master mason, or I will take your life.
This is no time or place for man, no secrets.
Talk not to me about time, place, patience, or the completion of the temple. Give me the secrets of a master mason, or I will take your life.
Now, modern masonry consists of two main recognition groups, which is the volume of sacred law, such as the Bible, the Quran, or other religious scriptures, to be open in a working lodge, that every member professes belief in a supreme being, that no women be admitted, and that the discussion of religion or politics does not take place within the lodge. And then there's continental Freemasonry, which consists of jurisdictions that have removed some or all of these restrictions. Then you got your Masonic Lodge. Now, this lodge regularly conducts the usual formal business of small organizations, approves in minutes, elect members, appoint officers, and take their reports, consider correspondence, bills, and annual accounts, organize sociable and charitable events. In addition to such business, the meeting may perform a ceremony to confer a Masonic degree.
Now, as it spread, it evolved and diversified, leading to the formation of various Masonic rites and orders, each with its own structure and variations in rituals and degrees. There are three pathways for the Freemason. The first and compulsory order, upon joining, is what's known as the Blue Lodge, where there are three levels to pass: the level of the apprentice, the degree of the fellow craft, and finally, the Master Mason. For many Masons, these first three degrees are merely a stepping stone to the higher truths. Now, many Masons will openly admit that the Blue Lodge teachings are purposely deceptive, intended to hide the real truths of Masonry until he is worthy of receiving them. Masonry, like all religions and secret societies, conceals its secrets from all except the adept, under false explanations and misinterpretations of its symbols to conceal the truth, which it calls the light.
These news networks don't want to push the actual truth in its full context, exactly what's going on. Now take a look at this video and the contradictions.
First of all, we do know that the city of New Orleans was impacted by a terrorist attack.
Patrick said we'll be taking over the investigative lead for this event. This is not a terrorist event.
You see that? So you have the mayor of New Orleans saying it was, right? Then you have the FBI saying it's not. And now the FBI are saying that it is. This is the truck that the Muslim was driving who did this, right? Look at the flag. Recognize this flag? This is crazy. And the majority of the world, they just want to bury their head in the sand. They don't want to acknowledge the root cause of these problems. They really don't.
My beloved country, UAE, we have Muslim brotherhoods as banned. We don't tolerate anti-Semitism. Unfortunately, the Muslim brotherhoods are not banned in the United States of America and not classified as terrorism or as a terrorist, even though Hamas is the armed forces of it.
Let's break down the name of this terrorist, whose name is Shahzad Din Jabbar, and is most likely of South Asian or Middle Eastern origin, with roots in countries like Pakistan, India, or Afghanistan. The name Shahzad Din, meaning son of the fate, is common in Muslim majority countries, and Jabbar is an Arabic name meaning powerful or mighty.
History books. Come here, let me stretch y'all out right fast, because this New Orleans hood history on the most haunted, luxurious hotel in New Orleans, the Bourbon Orleans. Bourbon Orleans Hotel was originally built in 1806 as the Theatre d'Orleans, but it didn't open up until 1817 because it had burnt down in 1815. Then they was using it for those octoroon and quadroon Creole balls, and it burnt down again in 1847. 1881, it was purchased by the Sisters of the Holy Family, the first African-American religious order in the United States. They made it into an orphanage, convent, and medical asylum for black girls. In 1964, it was turned to the Bourbon Kings Hotel, and since it been a hotel, people done seen ghosts of nuns, children, Confederate soldiers, and ballroom dancers. The ghost of the Bourbon Orleans Hotel be playing games with the elevator, your keys, your phone. You lose them and get them back. I don't know who be staying here, but I know who ain't. If you do stay at the Bourbon Orleans, you better keep your phone on you so you can call Ghostbusters and me to tell me what happened.
The haunting of Bourbon Orleans Hotel, which is located right between Royal Street and Bourbon Street. The hotel walls were constructed on land that dates back to the founding of New Orleans 300 years ago. In the days of the New World, when blank pages of the map were being filled, the French founded the city of Orleans was built on a bed of oyster shells. It is here at the Bourbon Orleans where America's grandest ballroom opened in 1817 to host masquerades and elaborate celebrations for the society's elite. In 1881, the Orleans Ballroom was converted into a Sisters of the Holy Family, who opened an orphanage and tended to sick during wars and epidemics. By the 1960s, the Order of Nuns relocated and structure was expanded into a luxurious hotel known as Bourbon Orleans. It's said that the Sisters of the Holy Family still resides in this hotel, and that they control what goes on Bourbon Street. They watch from the balcony. They patrol the areas. And make blood and blood contract with the politicals and the elite still.
There are plenty of theories about who this spectral bellhop was in his earthly life. One popular story suggests he met an untimely end during a fire or another tragic event. Whether he's a former employee who loved his job a bit too much or a spirit trapped by the hotel's history, his presence adds a unique charm to your stay. The bellhop isn't the only otherworldly resident. The Bourbon Orleans Hotel is a veritable party of the paranormal. Guests have reported seeing Confederate soldiers, children playing in the hallways, and even a dancing woman in the ballroom. It's like a supernatural soiree every night. The hotel's haunted reputation has made it a hotspot for ghost hunters and curious tourists alike. Paranormal investigators have captured all sorts of eerie evidence, from mysterious sounds to ghostly images. Even if you're a skeptic, spending a night here might just make you a believer, or at least give you a good story to tell.
It's said that the ghost of the Holy Nuns still patrols the area, watches over Bourbon Street on the balcony, and make blood and blood contract with the politicals and the elite still.
The Bourbon Orleans Hotel, once a convent and orphanage, is now said to be haunted by the spirits of the children who once lived there. Guests have reported hearing laughter and playing coming from empty rooms and seeing shadowy figures darting through the hallways.
New Orleans is known for a lot of voodoo, Santeria, and witchcraft. Bourbon Street is a place that people go to fulfill the desires of their flesh, such as fornication, drinking, smoking, and partying. And the reason why we see so much violence in certain cities and states in this world, that's because principalities known as demons rule over them. You can find that in Daniel 10, verse 13, that there are some places in this world that principalities have been given dominion over, that demons have dominion over. Look at Chicago, Florida, New Orleans. Some of the cities that we live in can have principalities ruling over them. That's why we need the blood of Christ so that we can be covered and no evil can overcome us or overtake us. Where sin is, demonic spirits also dwells there. This is true. Sin is like a gateway for demonic spirits. It's almost like an invitation. Demons feed from sin. It's like a sweet aroma to them. How living a pleasing life to the Lord is a sweet aroma to them. The prayer of a righteous person is like a sweet aroma to the Lord. A sinful lifestyle is like a sweet aroma to demons, to the devil, to Satan. It's so sad that people love their sin so much that they're willing to risk their lives for a little moment of pleasure. People still talking about how they finna go hit up Bourbon Street on Mardi Gras. You ain't that bored. You don't love sin that much. Stuff like this happen all the time on Bourbon Street. People get killed all the time. But something like this was just different. But remember, the reason why we see the increase of wickedness and violence and evil so much in certain cities, states, and countries in this world is because principalities, demons have been given authority They have been given dominion over them. They ruled over them. You can find it in Daniel 10, verse 13.
If this world was to end, meteor strikes, nuclear bombs, whatever the fuck happened, the next civilization that would come about would scavenge the earth and see these stadiums and see these things the same way we see the Colosseum in Rome, and we're like, yo, what? You only start to imagine, like, yo, what was happening here? What kind of live entertainment was this? What kind of crazy, you know, like
what they do here?
Like, what was society doing here? Like, it's gonna be the same thing when we look back into, like, if a new civilization was to pop up in 300 years and look back and see these NFL fields, they'd be like, yo, whatever the humans was doing hundreds or thousands of years ago, this shit had to be important. Because when you go into the Aztecs and you go into these Mayan ruins, and one of the most important things they highlight is, yo, these people had sports. These people had kings that were and rulers that were decided because the people were good at sports. You look at, like, the Greek, and you look at they cherish athletes. Like, in society, it's always been a thing.
Slaves could become gladiators in the Roman Empire when they were sold off and forced to fight in gladiator schools. As punishment, slaves could be sold into gladiator schools for the crimes they committed. But also at this time, the masters would be able to sell slaves into gladiator school, sometimes for any reason. Or their reason would be for the entertainment or for power and respect. Gladiators were trained months in specialized schools, and the wealthy investors managed the schools and profited from the gladiator success. So they also fought in spectacles for the entertainment for the people of the Roman Empire. There were plenty slaves who were once known for their gladiator heroicism. Spartacus, a slave who led the rebellion against the Roman Empire. Spartacus, who was born Thrace, the modern-day Balkan region, which includes Greece and Turkey. Spartacus was trained in Campus A, a gladiator school north of Naples. So notably at this time, if you were a slave, you could become a gladiator. And for becoming a gladiator, you would be able to earn your freedom. And from earning your freedom, you also became a legend. This is how gladiators' legacies was built. The shadow world, meaning there is a veil that the average person is living behind, a curtain that one refuses to open, living in darkness. The most kept secrets on the planet are held by those who look at themselves as God, or the chosen people of God, making everyday decisions for the world that affects you even if you don't see the effect of that change play out immediately. What if the theater stage is us as the people performing and making mockery of ourselves for a small group of elites for their Masonic rituals, and the stars, the lawmakers, and those who are part of the system of power are bound to encapsulate the souls of those who are ignorant to the sorcery being put on them.
I then began to notice a trend among celebrity sex symbols of the early 2000s. Nick Lachey, sun tattoo on his bicep. Cisco, there it is again. Tribal sun tattoo horribly placed over his belly button. Why would so many celebrities get such a bad tattoo? Immediately, my conclusions jumped to Illuminati sex cult. But that couldn't be. Could it? So I dug deeper. I looked at this year's halftime performers. What did they all have in common? There was no common thread. Nothing jumped out at me. Until I noticed something rising up over Adam Levine's waistline. That same tribal sun tattoo. Maroon 5 started to get their success in the early 2000s. Adam Levine drips sex. So what do all these people have in common other than being extremely sexy and making incredibly good music? Maroon 5, part of Universal Records, owned by Viacom. Nick Lachey gained his notoriety on the show Newlyweds, which aired on MTV, owned by Viacom? Cisco appeared in The Nutty Professor 2, produced by Universal Studios, owned by Viacom. The Super Bowl this year is on CBS, owned by Viacom. CBS Sunday Morning, their logo, massive sun. Travis Scott, good music. Universal, Viacom. Whew. Big Boy, part of Outkast, wrote Speakerbox, great musician. Don't think he has anything to do with this. He seems like a pretty good guy. But is he a pawn for Viacom? But why would Viacom want to destroy the good, wholesome family values that the NFL has set in place? It couldn't have anything to do with the fact that CBS, which we established is owned by Viacom, has exclusive broadcasting rights to the new league, the Alliance of American Football.